I would like to introduce the other half of our newest family members to the Research Center, Dr. Phillip Lancaster. And Dr. Phillip Lancaster is our animal science specialist, and he is going to talk to you about cow size and efficiency.
Thank you, Bridget. First, I'll introduce myself a little bit since I've just recently got here. I grew up in Illinois on a crop and livestock farm. We had beef cattle up there. Spent some time in Texas at Texas A&M, and then at Oklahoma State before we came here. Relative to the topic that I'm going to talk about, one of the important parts of my background is that a lot of my research as a graduate student was in feed efficiency. Okay, so some of you or a lot of you may have heard something about residual feed intake and measuring feed intake of individual bulls and selection for improved feed efficiency. And so that was a lot of my focus as a graduate student. And that translates a little bit to cow efficiency. So what are we talking about when we're talking about cow efficiency? We're talking about the ability of that cow to convert forage into pounds of weaned calf, right? And so again, we're talking about feed efficiency, okay? And when we think about cow efficiency, we talk about kind of two different areas or ways to look at it. One, biological efficiency. Okay, biological efficiency, we're talking about the ability of that animal to use feed energy to produce pounds of weaned calf. Then we've got economic efficiency. What's it cost for that cow to convert that feed into weaned calf? Okay? Those two things don't necessarily match up. All right? Excuse me. You know, economic efficiency varies from year to year based on what feed costs are relative to calf prices, and varies from ranch to ranch, depending on what your feed sources are, where you can get those, and what price you can get those at. Okay? But theoretically, over a long period of time, those should be somewhat similar. Okay? If you have a cow base that is genetically efficient, over a long period of time, those cows should also be economically efficient. Okay, although there's going to be a lot of fluctuation from year to year. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about cow efficiency from the biological standpoint, and we're going to talk about mature weight of cows and milk production of cows. Those are the two components that are really important to efficient energy use. And I don't have any visuals. My visuals are in your pamphlet or your handbook there, starting on page 10, the tables that I've got in there. So if you want to look at those tables as a reference, that's kind of what I'm going to use as I talk through this. Okay? So larger cows. We know that larger cows have higher maintenance requirements, right? They require more energy to keep around. Okay? But that relationship between energy requirements and body weight is not a linear relationship. Okay, so for every pound increase in body weight, you don't have an equal unit increase in maintenance requirements. All right, there in table 1, you can see what I'm calling metabolic body weight. That's our estimate of maintenance energy requirements. That decreases as a percentage of body weight as the cow gets larger. Okay? As you go from small cows to large cows, the percent of her energy requirements as a percent of body weight go down. So if to wean a calf of equal efficiency, a large cow can wean a lighter percentage of her body weight than a small cow and still be at the same level of efficiency relative to maintenance energy requirements. Okay? So you can see there, smaller cows, if they're weaning 50% of their body weight in calf weight, a larger cows can wean down around 46, 47, 45%. okay, depending on the weight there. Okay, so that cow can still be efficient as the same level of efficiency as a small cow, even though she's weaning a lesser percentage of her body weight. Okay? But let's look at some data. The second table is numbers from cow herd here at Ona. Okay? So if we look at this second table, I broke those cows up into average weights of 1050, 1150, about 1250, and about 1350. Okay, those are weights of cows from our herd here. All right. You can see the metabolic body weight equivalent weaning weight. So if a 1050 cow weans a calf that weighs 518, a 1350 cow has to wean a calf that weighs 618 to be equal on a maintenance energy basis. Okay? Same level of efficiency. All right? And so you'd see that correlates to a small cow weaning 49% of her body weight and the larger cow weaning 47% of her body weight. Now what I want you to look at is the actual weaning weights from the cow herd here at Ona. All right? Small cows had average weaning weights of 533, 545. The larger cows, 563. And it really stands out when you look at that last column there, the percentage of their body weight that they weaned. All right? The small cows needed to wean 49, 48% of their body weight. They weaned 51 to 48%. Okay? They did what we thought they should do. Now look at the large cows. They needed to wean 47%. They weaned 42, 43% of their body weight. Okay? So they didn't do what they needed to do to be on the same level of efficiency as the small cows. All right? Now there could be many reasons for that, but just in general we could say that the large cows were not able to wean the correct percentage of body weight in our environment. Whether that's forage quality, they didn't have enough milk production, they don't have enough growth potential in those calves. Okay, their genetics aren't right for that. But they did not wean what we thought they should to be on a similar efficiency basis. Okay? So then, one point about economics. If you flip to page 12 and look at table 3, when we talk about economic efficiency, we need to think about cows on a herd basis. If I got 1,000-pound cows, say I can carry 100,000-pound cows on my ranch, how many 1,200-pound cows can I carry? More or less? Less. Exactly. All right, so I'm going to have fewer numbers of calves to sell. Okay? Which is worth more? 50,000 pounds or a potload, so just say a potload of 400-pound calves or a potload of 600-pound calves? What's the sale price per pound of a 400-pound calf relative to a 600-pound calf? A lot higher. So if I got the same number of pounds and I multiply by a high number, which one brings me more money? The smaller calves. All right. Now you also have more cows to keep around. So I want to stress that that's not an estimate of profit. That's just potential revenue. Okay? Based on the sale price structure that I used. Okay? So there in table 3, you can see what the potential revenue is. They're kind of in the middle of the table of small cows and large cows weaning a metabolic body weight equivalent calf. Okay? So if they wean what they need to wean to be the same level of efficiency relative to maintenance requirements, based on the sale price structure that I used, that's your potential revenue for small calves and large calves. adjusting for herd size. All right. You can see there I estimated that if I got 100,000 pound cows, I can only keep 87 1,200 pound cows. Okay? Now, we said that on a maintenance energy basis, the larger cows could wean a lower percentage of their body weight and still be equal as far as efficiency. What about on an economic basis? Look at the last column there in Table 3. To bring in the same amount of revenue, the larger cows still have to wean the same percentage of body weight as small cows. So if your small cows are weaning 50% of their body weight, larger cows have to wean 50% of their body weight to bring in the same revenue. Okay? Now that could fluctuate a little bit based on sale price structure from year to year, but using the price slide that I've got there in that table, then it works out to be about 50% for both small cows and large cows. Okay? All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about milk production. How does milk production fit into this? We know we've got to have milk for that calf, right? Well, what's the efficiency of producing milk or feeding the cow to produce milk for the calf? It's pretty low. All right? The efficiency of feeding that cow to feed the calf is about 27%. What's the efficiency of feeding the calf directly? About 45%. All right? So which is more efficient? To feed the cow to produce milk for the calf, or to feed the calf directly? Feed the calf directly is more efficient. But can we do that? Totally. No. Calf's got to have milk, right? They can't use feedstuffs and forages until they get a little older. So you've got to have some milk in that cow. All right? But my point is, if you've got a whole bunch of milk in your cows, you're probably not going to be as efficient as you could be. Okay? There's another reason for that. Cows that have a high milk production potential have higher maintenance requirements. There's a cost for having that high milk production potential. Okay? Not just the feed for the cow to produce milk, she's also going to require more feed to maintain herself throughout the year. Okay? So again, having more milk than you really need, there's an additional cost to that. Okay? So to optimize efficiency, we need to match milk production of the cow with the growth potential of the calf. Okay? So we don't have more milk than we need, and we've got those higher maintenance requirements on the cow. But if we've got too little milk, calf won't grow to reach the body weight or the weaning weight that he needs to reach. Okay? So, table 4, I tried to calculate for different sized cows and different sized calves how much peak milk you'd have to have for that calf to be able to gain the amount of weight that he needs to gain. All right? So you can see how the amount of milk there in the last column increases as those cows get bigger, and the calves have to be bigger to be on an equivalent basis. Okay? I'm going to put a little disclaimer in there. That's my best estimate right now. Don't go out and try to select for cows that have 27% or 27 pounds of peak milk if you've got big cows. Okay? But that's to illustrate the point of trying to optimize efficiency. Okay? So, another thing to consider is your marketing strategy. All right? I know probably a few of you in here retain ownership of your calves through the feedlot. So is it efficient for you, if you do that, to have the most milk in your calf or in your cows that you can and maximize weaning weight? Or is it more efficient for you to feed the calf directly once he gets to the feedlot? Well, yes, okay. Biological efficiency, economic efficiency, we may fluctuate back and forth depending on corn prices. But from a biological standpoint, if you're retaining ownership of your calves, you're probably better off to have growthy calves, and moderate milk production in your cows, and feed that calf and let him gain the weight directly. Okay, then trying to push a bunch of milk production into your cows. Because again, that higher milk production, you've got an increased cost to that in maintenance requirements of that cow. Okay, so it comes with a cost. All right, if you're selling calves at weaning, then probably your best option is to look at trying to moderate your cow size and moderate milk production. Okay, and match milk production with the growth potential in your calves. One last thing that I do want to mention is a good way to improve cow efficiency is crossbreeding. Okay, if I can have a moderate sized cow with moderate milk production and I can breed her to a growthy bull, I can increase weaning weight. I can increase weaning weight relative to cow size and milk production. So I increase weaning weight relative to the inputs that go into that cow. All right. So some ways to do that is to look at, having you're gonna have two breeds. One breed of bulls for getting your replacement heifers, and one breed of bull that you use for your feeder calves. Okay. I know some of you may not be able to manage two different breeds of bulls, so there are other ways to do that. You can look at purchasing replacement heifers, or you can look at using AI. All right, I can AI my best cows to a moderate-sized bull with moderate milk and get my replacement heifers, and then I can have my large growthy bulls to breed the rest of my cows for my feeder calves that I'm going to sell. Okay, it's a nice little way to use AI to help improve efficiency of your cow herd and use crossbreeding. Okay. So I think I was fairly on time, a little bit short, but we got plenty of time for questions.
That one thing you're talking about, metabolic body weight, you said that's an estimate. Do you have, you said your workout there was in measuring feed efficiency and stuff, but you haven't developed that far enough to really know what the...
So your question is to really know what the maintenance energy requirement is of those different cows?
Correct.
There's going to be fluctuation. For individual animals are going to vary, but from a population standpoint, the average should be a good estimate, because the only way you're going to know the exact maintenance energy requirement of every cow is to measure it on every cow. All right. So we know that maintenance requirements are a function of metabolic body weight, and so basically it's a constant multiplied by metabolic body weight. And so if you calculate metabolic body weight, essentially you're calculating maintenance energy requirements. Does that answer your question?
That one, but there's one other. What about the DNA and feed efficiency? Is that parallel there any greater than it was? Testing DNA for feed efficiency.
The last information that I saw has been a couple of years ago, but I'm going to say no, probably not a whole lot greater than it was. It's a tool to add to the toolbox. Let me put it that way. Looking at selecting bulls that have only been DNA tested and not actually measured for feed intake and feed efficiency is probably a little bit of a gamble, because the correlation's not that great from what I've seen. Does that answer?
Are your minors in finance or mathematics? Or both?
Neither. That's why they're estimates. Yeah.
Is it different breeds?
Do different breeds have different weaning weights?
Yeah. So larger breeds that are going to have a larger mature weight will generally have larger weaning weights, larger yearling weights. There's a direct genetic correlation between mature weight and weaning weight and yearling weight.
All weight.
What do you mean all weight?
Like some breeds are having like bigger breeds.
Yes. So some bigger breeds are going to have bigger weaning weights and bigger yearling weights.
Some breeds that are more efficient.
Yes, a little bit. I have to go back and really look at that info to tell you, give you a specific answer. But yes, there are differences between breeds in efficiency. And some of that depends on what efficiency you're measuring. You're measuring efficiency of a growing calf or efficiency of a mature cow. Yeah.
Using just a general crossbred herd that we'd find in Florida, I mean, the first thing that I think about is I wean a bunch of heifers. Now, how am I going to select out of those general crossbred cattle the heifers that I want to say that will be the appropriate weight when they're 3 or 4 year old cows? Have you got any rules of thumb that we could use in crossbred heifers that would give us an idea like weaning weight size versus age to pick, so that we make the appropriate picks and that we're not 200 pounds off when they're 4 years old?
Yeah. I think the approach I would take on that is you look at weight per day of age, and like you said, those big ones. Yeah, it's hard to send those nice big heifers to the sale barn, but if you want to moderate your cow size, those are probably the ones that need to go. All right, and then also don't save the little bitty ones. All right, you want to save probably the ones that are middle to upper middle, and those will be the ones that will work to give you a moderate sized cow.
All black and small ears.
All black and small eared.
That philosophy is what y'all are applying to the owner herds.
That's what John has told me they did 10 years ago when John first got here, and they wanted to moderate cow size here at the research station. Was they started shipping those nice big heifers and keeping the more moderate sized ones for their replacements. And as you saw, we still have cows that are 1,300 pounds, but we've moderated the average down to around 1150. The one thing that I did want to mention, I forgot to mention as far as future research in this area, one area is I'd like to get better at these numbers, get where you could actually put a little more faith in them, as far as this is your target based on what your feed resources are, what you could expect growth of your calves to be. Here's what your target cow size should be, and your target weaning weight, and your target milk production. Okay? And then a second area that is more along the lines of selecting the individual cow. We've got a project that we started here with the herd where we're measuring weaning weights and body condition score on cows and calves and we can calculate what we call an energy efficiency index. And by that, we separate cows into the ones that are efficient and the ones that are inefficient. And then we're going to do some research to look and see if that calculation really pans out as far as measuring efficiency, truly measuring efficiency in those cows, and being able to measure feed intake in those cows and measure milk production and know if that calculation is really giving us a true and accurate assessment. A little bit of previous research that's been done using that calculation out at Texas A&M. They on a couple of ranches out there, they've seen heritability estimates for that energy efficiency index of about 0.25. So not real high heritability, but enough that we could potentially make some genetic progress by selecting for that.
In your experiment and model, to what extent is fertility a measure of feed efficiency?
That's a good question, and fertility does not play into the calculation. Let me put it that way. We're making the I don't want to say assumption, but those cows still have to get bred every year. So if even cows that have a high energy efficiency index, if they don't get rebred, they got to go to town. Okay, so it's tough to calculate how the fertility of an individual cow, unless obviously she's been bred every year for the last 8 to 10 years. Then you know she's got high fertility. Other than that, it's really difficult to assess whether that cow is going to have high fertility and add that to the calculation.
On the program where you were measuring the efficiency on the cows here at the station, will you follow those calves through the feed yard and measure their efficiency on concentrated rations when they leave here and see how those numbers match up on efficient cows on grass versus calves on feed?
In this first round of studies, no. That would be a good question for later on down the road. If I can get some money from somebody to pay to send those calves out to Texas somewhere and feed them. Potentially we could work with a feed yard out there that wanted to buy them and would be willing to give us data back. That would help us out. But this first round of projects, what I really want to get at is this calculation really giving us what we think it's giving us? You know, because we're calculating it based on body weight, body condition score change, and weaning weights of the calves. There's no feed intake going into that. There's no milk production going into that. I want to know, is there differences in actual measured efficiency in those cows that have a low and high energy efficiency index? And then if there are, then I can really use that calculation on a large number of cows, potentially collaborating with some of you guys in the audience to follow calves and to do more extensive research with larger numbers of animals. Yeah.
I followed 2 pregnant bulls that I have. At 4 years of age, these bulls were producing a cow that ranged in the 11 to 1150 range. By the time this bull, or these 2 bulls, were 7 or 8 years old, they were producing a cow that matured at more like 1,300 pounds. Is that an experience somebody else has had, or is that just my experience?
I don't know the reason behind that. My guess is if you've been saving replacement heifers out of those, then potentially you've just been increasing your cows over mature cow weight over time, because they always had that high mature weight potential. It's just that your young cows were moderating that until you start saving more replacement heifers out of those bulls, and then your cow weight started going up. That could be too. Maybe we can blame that one on Joe and the better forages that we've got. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.